This is Community Conversations, where we connect Harrisburg with home.
Hi, this is State Representative Valerie Gaydos. Welcome to the podcast. I am here today with Pittsburgher of the Year, Christina Cassotis. She's the CEO of the Pittsburgh International Airport. Welcome, Christina. I'm so glad to have you here because we've got some exciting projects coming up with the Pittsburgh Airport.
We do. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be talking to you in this format. So thanks for including me.
So when's the airport going to be opening? It's 2025 is a special year.
Yes, it is. And well, you know, the airport's open. But when is the new terminal?
When the new terminal?
We would before Thanksgiving. That's what I'm committing to, is that 2025 it will be open. An exact date, we're going to wait until we get closer. What you're likely to hear before you hear the actual opening date for the public is when we have the big events, gala, open house, etc. So we've got to get those nailed down pretty quickly.
And that's all going to start pretty soon, right?
Well, in the fall.
In the fall, okay.
So what we expect is that we will get to what they call substantial completion. That's when all the contractors are done with their work and they start packing up and moving their vehicles off site, and we start moving the construction trailers, and we start trials and testing. And we are going to do a lot of trials and testing to make sure that when it's open to the public, it's not the first time we've been through it as a team with our airline partners, with our TSA partners, with our Customs and Border Protection partners. There's a lot of work to do. ACPD, Allegheny County Police Department. We want to make sure everybody's ready so that the public day one is not our day one. And we've got some work to do.
So the key is that it is a modernization project. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say, well, why do we need a, quote, new airport? Why don't you explain a little bit about that? Because I think people don't understand the difference between, we used to have a hub, and that was when people used to fly through Pittsburgh. No one ever came to Pittsburgh or left Pittsburgh. They went through Pittsburgh. And now with this modernization project, tell us a little bit about how is that going to change and what's super cool about this new airport?
So tons of things are super cool, but let's go back to why we did it. And I love that you're asking this question and how you asked it and how you framed it. So in the days when U.S. Airways had a hub here, 80% of the passengers went gate to gate. They never went outside. They didn't get in a taxi. They didn't go downtown. They went from A5 to B37, right? For example. So that meant there was a lot of pressure on what we call airside, where the terminals are, where the gates are. And when this airport was built, there was no TSA. TSA had to get wedged in after the events of 9/11, and I mean instantly. So every airport in the country was thinking, how do I fit security checkpoints?
Yeah, that was a game changer for a lot of our businesses that were in the airport when you used to be able to go to the airport and shop, and then all of a sudden now, nope.
No, right. So that's something we will be bringing back like we did before, but let's get to why we did it. So fast forward to when I got here in 2014, 95% of the passengers were not connecting. They were coming through the checkpoint.
95%.
Okay, so we went from 20% of the passengers being from Pittsburgh or coming to Pittsburgh to 95% of the passengers leaving from Pittsburgh or coming into Pittsburgh, which means the parking areas are busier, which means the checkpoints are busier because we grew traffic. In the last 10 years, we've grown traffic by 25%. So that means that having two checkpoints doesn't work. We couldn't easily just expand the checkpoint because of the configuration of the building. And quite frankly, having a half-mile train connect the two doesn't make sense. The baggage system works for Southwest and American. It's automated when the bags come off the plane back to the gate to the baggage carousels. But everybody else, they have to tug the bags over in baggage carts and then go back empty. Their Customs and Border Protection, you had to, before I got here, you had to go through security once you got off your plane just to go to the garage. Why? Because the minute you pick up your luggage, you're no longer a secure passenger, which means they had to rescreen you just to get on the train. Okay, so that's why we built that kind of complicated, trail through the back of the airport. It's a 34-year-old building. By the time, 33-year-old building. And there's just a lot of technology that can't be added to it, etc. So we decided that the best thing to do and the most cost-effective thing to do was to build a new terminal next to where the gates are today.
So you drive up and you can go straight in
Yes.
instead of having to go all
On the
over the
train.
place
Yeah.
in that darn train. So
Which people like. A lot of people like the train.
Well, you're getting rid of the train.
Yes.
How much money is that going to save?
Oh, millions a year. So just to operate the train is probably between $5 and $7 million a year. And then every 10 years, you've got to do a really big overhaul, which costs millions and millions of dollars. So in consultation with the airlines, who, by the way, pay the bills, this was decided that this is the best way forward. This is the best thing for passengers. It's the best thing for our airline partners. It's the best thing for our law enforcement partners. This is a better experience overall. There's a lot of beautiful stuff coming, and I mean beautiful aesthetically, but also from a passenger experience and an employee experience perspective, which I care a lot about. So why did we do it? Because we had to. Because the business model changed, and I'm going to be really clear about this. If for some reason I'm wrong, and a hub decides, an airline says, we really need a hub in Pittsburgh, which could happen. I'm just saying it wasn't going to happen in the last 10 years. Then there will be space. There will be gates that allow for that to happen. And if we need more gates, we can add them.
How many total gates are there now?
63.
63. And how many are in use?
Most of them are in use at one time or another. Some of them we call common use gates, so they're available for diversions, which we have a lot of. If there are storms in the Northeast, you will see aircraft that will land in Pittsburgh that were supposed to be landing in Newark or JFK or Washington or Boston. We are a diversion airport. So we keep gates for what we call common use. They're not leased to the airlines. We have plenty of room for growth. If we really got huge, we could add more gates, and that would not put any stress on the parking situation or any of the what we call pre-security services or facilities. So we're fine either way. And I want to point out just one thing. In London, at Heathrow, they take care of 80 million passengers a year on 2 runways. Gatwick, which has also in London, has about 50 million passengers a year, has 1 runway. So combined, 3 runways. We have 4, okay, in Pittsburgh with 10 million passengers.
10 million passengers.
We're good. We're good. We have enough gates, we have enough air, we have enough runways and taxiways and enough area that we can take care of any kind of growth from now into the future.
That's great. And, I think that when you talk about growing into the future, one of the things that I particularly found really interesting about the airport is how it's really a test bed. And you've got partnerships with the universities. You've got with Pitt. You've got with CMU. Carlo. All the, who are we missing?
Let's see. At CMU, we've worked with Robert Morris. We've worked with Chatham, I believe. I mean, we're very open to working with universities around here because there's so many of them.
So we have all this technology in Pittsburgh, and what I found is really cool is that it's being put to use. You're using the paints and the flooring to test for new materials, and that means that with those relationships, there's going to be this ongoing improvement for the airport. It's not going to be this once and done where you see airports or schools, they get built and then they get stagnant for a while. This is really going to be sort of an evergreen thing that's going to enable technology, robotics, the baggage. I mean, tell us a little bit about the project that you have going on with that.
You know a lot. So first of all, well done. I'm thrilled that you do. I'm so glad that you come out, that you've toured it, that you understand this, because it really helps us to have partners in Harrisburg who know what we're doing and why. We have been working with a lot of the organizations, private, nonprofit, philanthropy, and university, in order to drive innovation into an industry, my industry, aviation, not so leading edge. Okay. I have said in the past, and I will stand by this, that the last big innovation in flight is when we actually got off the ground. That there is a lot we can do better in terms of making the passenger experience much more human and take care of people along the way, which means we first have to take care of our teams. So if you look at the assets in Pittsburgh, when I got here 10 years ago and looked around and I thought, are you guys kidding me? You have all of this going for you. I didn't know half of it. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was this robotics community, AI, data, automation, all the work that's being done in Pittsburgh. And as we started to look at building the new terminal, we created what we call the X Bridge, which is a physical space, but more like a state of mind now, where we would test new innovation and materials. And I love that you pointed out the paint, because what we wanted to make sure of is that whatever paint we put on those columns that are going to hold up the terminal,
everyone's going to touch,
that everybody's going to touch or run a cart into, or a stroller, or a runaway bag, that patching it was not going to force us to have toxic fumes through the terminal. And, and architects have great ideas around design, and we love them. But when it came to actually picking the paint, we talked to our painters and then had the architect say, yes, this works for a color. So that's how we tested materials. How we test robotics, innovation, AI is we actually have somebody who comes from the startup community, and I know how passionate you are about this, and says, not can you fix this problem, but what could your technology do in an airport? And there's a lot of times where the company's like, we never thought of this. We never thought of what this could do in the aviation space.
It's the greatest center for moving people around, and it's the number of passengers that go through that.
Yeah, and we can test. And the other thing is, so for the last 2 years, we've hosted, and I know you've been a part of it, so thank you, the Future Travel Experience, which is a London-based global organization, has held a conference in Pittsburgh called Aviation and Robotics, where we have brought airlines and airports, and I mean invited, from around the world to work with Pittsburgh companies on, can you solve these problems? Last year, the Hillman Foundation gave a $75,000 grant to the winning idea, which will be debuted at this year's conference in May, so you have to come.
I have to wait till then?
Yeah, you do, because it's exciting but it's very much about how can we work more efficiently, not to replace people, but to actually do some of the work that, it would be great for robotics to do so that people can do sort of higher value work. So we're excited about that. And I love that you understand how important, putting these two industries together, what that can do is like 1 and 1 makes 3.
And then on top of that, you have Neighborhood 91.
Yeah.
That's it's the additive manufacturing center. Talk a little bit about what that center has done for the property around the airport, making it really attractive for businesses.
Yeah, so we're really interested in making sure that we put our land to good use. So we want to make sure that we're using the land. We sit on 8,800 acres. We're a very big footprint as an airport. And we wanted to make sure that we were intentional about what would locate on the airport. So Neighborhood 91 was a way of saying, let's take this 195-acre plot, look at all the assets in the community, what could we put together and sort of accelerate the adoption of? And it turned out to be basically 3D metal printing, advanced manufacturing. We have companies out there that are producing parts for major OEMs or aircraft manufacturers, and we have seen that they've been able to get to market faster, and that we are saving them a lot of time, them a lot of shipping costs, and these products are getting to market faster. Hyundai created an arm for the Mars rover out of that campus. So it's exciting because, again, it leans on the robotics and automation, AI, advanced manufacturing that's happening in the region. It says the airport's a great place to produce these high-value, big, expensive parts because you can ship them out the next day. So Neighborhood 91 has been a huge success, and we look forward to it continuing.
Well, and also the airport is adjacent to the Air Force Base. We have the 171st and the 911th, the refueling wing. And what is the relationship with the Air Base? And talk a little bit about what maybe some of your plans are to try to also get the Air Base off grid. And talk about let's go back up a little bit and talk about how the airport is really unique and its energy use, and then what they're doing with aviation fuel, and how you energize the airport right now.
So thank you. So when we look at energy, we all care about making sure that we've got diverse energy supplies and that we are resilient. As an airport, what I care a lot about, our whole team does, is that we never go down. Years ago, Atlanta went down for a day because the grid had a problem. So when Atlanta grinds to a halt, guess what? We all feel that. There's a huge ripple effect because of how interconnected the industry is. Shortly after that, LA had a problem. And I said to the team, we extract natural gas on site. Why wouldn't we create our own microgrid? Which we did, and it's been running for 3 years. I believe, the natural gas and the solar, because we have a 10-acre solar farm also, between the two, I think we're the only airport in the world that completely powers its terminal and airfield, along with the Hyatt and the gas station, from the microgrid, which means the grid is our backup. As an airport, resilient infrastructure is really critical. And that has allowed us to lower the costs of energy for us, for our airline partners, and and contribute to the air quality getting better in the region. So great, we did our part.
Well, but that also ties into the question where everyone asks is, who's paying for this? You have natural gas on the property. Yeah. How much has that saved the airport, or how much does that enable you to draw down your debt or to pay for the things? Talk a little bit about those numbers, because I think people don't quite understand how unique the Pittsburgh airport is.
It's why I took the job, to be candid. When I met with the selection committee of the board, I thought, nice people, but I'm not doing this. And then I went back and I asked to meet with who appoints the board, and I met with Rich and Jen Liptak at the time, and Rich started,
and that's Rich Fitzgerald, the county executive,
the former county executive, and he talked to me about the natural gas, and I remember thinking, oh, ding, ding. That allows for revenue that most airports don't realize. That was helping to pay down the debt.
No airport.
Well, Denver and Dallas.
Is it that? Okay.
Dallas,
okay.
And then I think there's one or two smaller ones in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So the point is, it's been done. And the fact that it was getting done in Pittsburgh, I thought that is really shrewd. And it allowed for revenue to come in, because there was a percentage that came to the airport, which must be spent on the airport. Everybody needs to understand that. Revenue that gets earned at the airport has to stay on the airport by federal law. We can talk about why later.
And that includes the vendors, whether it's
parking,
pizza or
anything. We don't get to go fund something downtown. It's illegal. We'd get fined and in big trouble. So when I found out that there was natural gas, that there was going to be this extra revenue, and that revenue was helping to pay down the debt that was left over from when U.S. Airways hit the skids, I thought, okay, once that debt gets paid off, that's going to be a real asset. So we have put that to use. And then it seemed like, well, why wouldn't we put the natural gas to use also? So we've got 5 natural gas turbines powering the airport, as well as this 10-acre solar farm. And that also takes care of County Airport, which is a reliever out in West Mifflin as well. It's a really big deal, and it has gotten the attention of airlines around the world, other airports who are saying, how did you do that? And what I really care about, and I know you do too, is getting Pittsburgh known for its innovation. I think a lot of people forgot that at some point. Steel collapse.
Pittsburgh's cool.
It is cool, but, I think we have a better story to tell than maybe people who have grown up here all the time think about, because it's just what they know.
Right.
And what I keep saying is, this is so special, and there's so much opportunity here to expand on this. So we are going to move into the area of creating alternative fuels from hydrogen. Big deal. Again, working with our partners at CNX and Key State Energy, we care a lot about that. And from ethanol, supporting our farmers, right? How do we create fuel that's already certified by Europeans, that will help them meet some of their goals? And if we're the place they can get it, wouldn't that be fantastic? So lots of jobs come along with it, which I care a lot about, putting people to work, but also making sure that, again, we're telling the story around innovation. We're telling the story that Pittsburgh thinks differently, and an aviation industry can think differently, and look at what can get replicated elsewhere.
So you talk about jobs and what this has generated for this region, whether it be painters, steam fitters, carpenters. Talk about each of those sectors and what was so unique about the construction of this airport and some of the features that I think that everybody should be aware of.
Well, first of all, we were really intentional at the very, very beginning when the 0% design costs came in, which we have to vet with lots and lots of different...
And explain what 0%, what does that mean?
It means, here's what it should look like, guys. Let's think what that might cost. That's without any drawings, okay? Then you go to cost estimators, 3 of them. And they all say, well, we think that's about 1.1 billion. You know that's going up. The minute you get into detailed design, no, it's just a fact.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
So we know at a base level, it's 1.1 billion, which was never going to be the number. It was always going to be higher. So the first thing, what I cared about, I'm an outsider, came from New England, never wanted it to be that lady built that airport the way she wanted it, and she somehow left us with something that wasn't good for us. So I cared a lot about Pittsburghers building it and it being representative of Pittsburgh design and Pittsburgh assets. So the first thing we did is we looked and we did a study of all the contractors in Pittsburgh to see how many could bond for over $1 billion. And there weren't a lot. So we split the project into two so that Pittsburgh firms could bond for one or both, and we could hire Pittsburghers. I lived through the Big Dig in Boston. People were flown in to build that, and they flew out. I know that Pittsburgh knows how to build things. They know how to make things.
That's right.
They're good at this. They've got great trades. They have a lot of pride in workmanship. And I thought, then let's put Pittsburghers to work. And so we split the project into two. The steel that is on the that is the core and the frame of that building was all fabricated in Ambridge, right across the river, in the same building that fabricated the steel for the Empire State Building and the Golden Gate Bridge. I loved that history. Touring that place just gave me goosebumps. Over 85% of the materials were locally sourced, and far more than that of the teams building it are from this area. To me, that's a story. The economic impact to that is huge. It stays here. It gives people a chance to be part of something that when they walk through in 10 years can say to, a sister, a best friend, a niece, a daughter, I did this. I was part of this. I cared a lot about that. So the economic impact has been significant, over $2.5 billion in economic impact just from the work. And we expect that, that the result will have people looking at Pittsburgh differently.
Oh, that's awesome. I think, to hear that number that 85% was sourced here locally is just amazing. And I think, we as Pittsburghers are definitely proud of that. So it's great to highlight that feature. I want to kind of shift gears here to talk about you personally. Oh. And I can tell you that, before I was a state rep, I came and heard you talk somewhere. Oh. Maybe it was at Robert Morris. I'm not really sure. And I remember there were a couple of things that you said because you had just arrived here, and I think no one knew who you were. It was who is this person that's going to?
Why is she here?
Why is she here? Right? But there were a couple of things that I took from that talk that I was really impressed, and that is that. And I'm going to summarize this. These weren't exactly your words. You were saying that when you were contemplating about taking the job here and everyone was saying to you, well, what are you going to do with your family? What are you going to do with your car, your house, all these little things. And your response was, you know what? I'm going to put the big rocks in the box first. Right. And that is a skill set that I think, we need in CEOs because you look at the big picture and then work downwards to fill in the blanks. And it seems that the Pittsburgh airport, that kind of came to fruition is that you looked at the big rocks to put them in the box first. And now we've got an airport that I think that we're going to be really proud of. So that was something in that talk that really struck me. And I think that's seems to carry through your career here. Yeah,
that's really interesting. I wrote it down because I thought, I should remember that I said that. That sounds really good. Just to be clear, the big rock was my family. And here's what I knew. We'd figure it out. Yeah. That's what I didn't know is how, and I didn't know what exactly we'd do. My son was finishing, I started in January, my son was finishing 6th grade. So the last thing I was going to do is move him in the middle of a school year and worry about this stuff. It's like, we'll do that later. Plus, I knew I'd be drinking from the fire hose, metaphorically, and I would need the time to not worry about getting home for dinner in the first couple of months. But yeah, the big rocks were, do I want this job? Yes. Do I believe first of all, do I think I can do it? Can I meet the challenge? Yes. Do I want it? Yes. Is my family supportive? After my husband got over the initial Pittsburgh, yes, then we will figure it out. And so the big rocks for me were, we will, you're right, it's how I do everything. I did not know how we were going to fix the airport. I just knew we had a chance to do it, and there were all these assets in the community that if we put together differently, it could be something really special. But yes, that's how I think about things. I think way out, way out, and then you back into, okay, well, what's the next step? I don't have to know all the steps in between, because it's going to change anyway, right?
But it's having that vision, and hopefully we're going to be seeing that. The other thing that when I read...
You'll see it.
We will be seeing it. I did have a tour, so I've already seen a lot of the really neat things. So, but in the Pittsburgh Magazine, there were a couple of things that I learned that I did not know. That you came from a family that was in aviation, and that your dad was a pilot, and you traveled all around the world and probably went through a lot of airports.
Well, to be clear, I traveled around the world. My mother says this. I didn't know. I had been on 4 international flights before I was 3 because my father was stationed in Hong Kong. He was a military fighter pilot in the Vietnam War. He was a Marine Corps fighter pilot, flying A4s off an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Mediterranean, which is insane to me. Got recruited into Pan Am, and they moved us to Hong Kong when I was very young. I don't remember those flights. After that, there were no flights. My father didn't want to fly on vacation. We were hiking mountains at Acadia National Park and in the White Mountains and the Green Mountains. So we took one trip when I was 10. I was 10, my brother was 7, and we went to London. And I just remember thinking, I'm not in New Hampshire anymore. This is pretty cool. And then I traveled a lot when I got out of, after I did my thing and I wasn't successful in college on purpose. I was able to use flight benefits for another year or 2. So I did fly, but I think it's almost like I think it must have anchored me, but I don't remember those early flights at all.
Okay.
I have no recollection. I remember the one to London. Yeah.
So the other thing that I thought was very unique of what the airport is doing is that I understand that you have honeybees on premise.
Lots of them.
And can we buy the honey? Can you buy that at the airport?
No, but you can buy it at the Swickley Farmers Market.
Okay.
And I am thrilled that this is what I love about innovation. Innovation is not always technology. Innovation is Presley's Place, our suite of rooms for folks with sensory processing issues, adults and children. Innovation is our head of wildlife management coming to me and saying, this might sound crazy, but we keep getting bee swarms on an airplane wing, which means an airplane cannot take off. It can't even push off the gate if it's got a swarm of bees on its wing. Can I bring in a beekeeper? And I said, yeah, my grandfather was a beekeeper. My grandfather was a gardener, and he kept honeybees. Like, I grew up eating honey from the comb. And I said, sure. And he said, really? Because nobody would let me do this before because they were worried we wouldn't make any money. I said, no. This isn't about making money. Try it. What he figured out...
It's about problem solving is what it is.
It's about problem solving, but here's the coolest thing. I love it. This is Ben Schertzer. He found a map of the topography of that airport before it was created into an airport in like the 50s. Okay, once there was a farm, there were a bunch of farms. A lot of that land had to be leveled in order to create the airport. The bees, 60 years later, were following still the old tracks. I know, it gave me chills. So he was able to set up these collection things on key trees to be able to catch them before they got to the planes. I love this.
Wow.
I know. And then the beekeeper who teaches beekeeping and is phenomenal said, I'll set up apiaries because we don't use pesticides on those 8,800 acres. So the bees are actually pollinating and producing honey that is beautiful and pure and fantastic and sold at the Swickley Farmers Market.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
And we've added a lot. So I think we're up to over 250 apiaries now.
But that's the key, the whole solving problems and thinking outside of the box. And you did mention Presley's Place, something that is pretty unique here to Pittsburgh Airport and what that does for the passengers. Talk a little bit about that particular location and how often does it get used?
Oh, it gets used every single day. So Presley's Place is a suite of rooms for folks experiencing sensory processing issues. So it could be somebody who has autism, somebody who just is really stressed about flying. Again, so this came from the front line. This was Jason Rudge, who is a heavy equipment operator. So he plows the snow. He makes sure that planes can land in really rough weather. And he's been at the airport for some time. His son, Presley, had been diagnosed with autism. And he wrote me a letter, dropped it in the CEO mailbox, and it said that a sensory room had really helped Presley adjust to preschool. And he said, I think there's a lot of families that could never even consider flying because of the stress that it would put on their family member. It's just so chaotic at an airport. And I needed an innovation project, and I wanted the first one to have nothing to do with technology because I wanted people to understand innovation is about doing anything better, different, opening up the world to somebody who may not have had access to it before. And I said, we're going to do this. And he said, how? I said, I have no idea. But we actually built this suite of sensory rooms. American Airlines donated part of the inside of a plane so that people who've never been on a plane before can see what it's going to feel like to buckle a seatbelt, to pull down the overhead compartment, to lift the window shade, pull down the tray. And it's just been a huge success among families who never thought they could fly. Now, next door to it is a single stall bathroom that has installed in it an adjustable adult-sized changing table. Because it turns out that if you have a severely disabled child, that will probably grow into a severely disabled adult. And in that case, there's no dignity in rolling out a yoga mat and helping somebody, take care of a bodily function, right? So we installed that, and when we opened that, there were people crying, saying, this has changed everything for us. And to me, travel is all opportunity. It's all about, there's a big world out there. I love it when people can see it. I also love to bring people into Pittsburgh just so they can see what we have here, and the more people we can make available, make our facilities available to, I think the better. And it's been copied. San Francisco has opened one. Seattle has opened one. People have asked for the designs and the drawings, and we've said if you're an airport or public facility, we'll give them to you.
Well, earlier you mentioned about new flights. Mm-hmm. What are some of the new flights that are coming up? I saw recently Los Angeles to Pittsburgh's coming up April. We've always had it, but it's back on a network carrier. So American, I think after 8 years, is back in the market daily. So daily. Yes, yep. So LA to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to LA on American. That's a really big deal. We've had Spirit in the market, Southwest in the market, and London.
Yep, London is back, which is fantastic. Iceland, so Reykjavik is back. We had WOW, they went out of business, so now Icelandair is flying it. That's seasonal. We've added, Seattle's been back for a while, San Diego, San Francisco, so lots of West Coast flying. Salt Lake finally came back after the pandemic. We just added Greensville, Spartanburg for a couple days a week. I know.
Well, thank you, Christina. This has been a really great chat about the Pittsburgh Airport. And again, we're just so proud that Christina is the CEO of the year, Pittsburgher of the year for the CEO of the Pittsburgh International Airport. So having this conversation, learning a little bit about the airport and what's exciting for fall of 2025 to get this new airport modernization project announced and have people actually going through the airport using it.
Yes, I'm excited. I really thank you for this. This was great. We covered a lot, and I loved your questions. So anytime, I'm happy to come back.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Christina, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks.
For more information on the terminal modernization project at Pittsburgh International Airport, visit blueskypit.com.